choose the right RC car battery is the topic of today's video. A question I get asked a lot by people both online and offline is, what's the best RC car battery for this car, for that car, etc. What's the best brand to get? So I'm going to try and give some advice and cover off those points in today's video. First of all, what brand of battery is the best one to get? Well, I can tell you right now, if you were to research every brand of battery online for RC cars, you'd go out and buy a nitro car tomorrow, because somebody out there has something bad to say about every single brand out there. You will find somebody's had a bad experience, the lipo go puffy, explode, short out with every single RC car brand. So I'm not going to give you a definitive answer on that, but if you to ask me what the main brands I use at the minute, well, one is GENSACE and the other is POWERHOBBY. Both of those are found to be very reliable and give out close to the power that's stated on the outside of the pack, as I'll get on to right now when I discuss how to choose the right RC car battery. Well, one of the first things that you want to think about when deciding what battery to get is, do you want a hard shell pack or do you want a soft shell pack? Now, arguably, you would think the hard shell pack, yeah, in the event of a crash or anything, that's going to be much better, Rich. That's going to be a lot better protected, whereas this soft shell one might burst open. But before you go rushing out to buy a hard shell pack, here's something to think about. Well, here's something to think about. This is my Traxxas Rally, modified, does about 60 plus miles an hour. If I was to hit something so hard that I am worrying about damaging the battery inside, can you imagine the damage that would be done to the chassis? My point is, if you hit something so hard that you're worrying about whether the battery is hard shell or soft shell, there really isn't going to be an awful lot of your car left to worry about. What I'm meaning is, the battery is going to be the least of your worries if it's hit something so hard that either the hard shell pack or the soft shell pack has split open. However, with that said, there is something to consider. Occasionally, battery straps come loose in the event of a crash, and the pack will somehow squeeze through the side and come flying out and bounce down the road. If that happens to you, or you're worried about that happening, then I would say go for a hard shell pack for that extra safety when this is bouncing down the road. Soft shell pack can, as yours truly has witnessed, get ground open virtually to the point of bursting into flames, and I know some people out there have had them burst into flames. But if that happens to you, do not blame the battery manufacturer, because they're not budgeting on you hurling the battery out of the car at 60 plus miles an hour. So the hard shell, soft shell thing will depend on your personal preference and what you drive. If you just drive a crawler, you might as well get a soft shell pack, because you're not going to be going fast enough to ever cause yourself a problem with a hard shell pack, risking breaking open or falling out the car. Now, when it comes to choosing the right battery for your RC car, there are three key factors. One is the voltage of the pack, two is the capacity of the pack, and the third one is the C rating of the pack. And I'm going to explain all those in more detail. However, first of all, the kind of questions that I get asked on a regular basis is, Rich, my car's currently got a 3000 milliamp pack. Will I be alright to fit 5200 milliamps to it? Will it cause any damage to the motor, to the ESC? Or somebody might ask me if they're going to fit a 3S pack to a particular RC car. Or one of the most common questions I get is, Rich, if I fit a 50C pack to my car as opposed to a 25C pack to my car, is it going to damage the ESC or the motor? So we'll just talk about that very briefly. Well, first of all, when it comes to ESCs, the thing that kills them is either not getting too much current or more voltage than they've been designed for. This Spectrum one is designed for 6S. However, if I was to connect this POWERHOBBY 8S pack up to it, the voltage is going to be too much and the ESC is going to be burn out. And while this is a 5000 milliamp capacity battery, it is not going to cause any issue to this ESC if it's a 6S pack. So it's overcurrent and over voltage that kills ESC. Does fitting one of these big lipos cause damage to a motor? Absolutely not. What kills motors is heat, not voltage. This could, a 6S motor, you could run like a 12S through this and it will still run up until the point it gets too hot, and then the magnets cease becoming magnets and the motor loses all of its power. It's heat that kills motors. If you overvolt one, it will get too warm, but it's not the voltage alone from fitting a bigger battery to the car that actually kills the motor. Hope that makes sense. Well, out of those 3 key points I mentioned, the first one I want to talk about is battery capacity. I'll quickly show you what it means using the whiteboard. Just remember guys, if you like what you see today, don't forget to subscribe. Well, to explain battery capacity, here's our stock motor, here's our stock ESC. Assume this battery here, think of it as being like a fuel tank. So this is our 2200 milliamp 3S fuel tank, okay? And it's that volume. We can fill it up to there without any problem at all. Think of the ESC as the fuel pump. So when the fuel pump is drained, all of the capacity from this battery, the thing just like your car engine, is going to stop running on there. However, if you run with a 5000 milliamp battery pack, our fuel tank isn't like this. It's like this kind of capacity on there. But guess what? The fuel in it hasn't changed. It's still got like 3S fuel in there. If you think of it, it's not like you've increased the octane rating. These are both still 3S packs. So the voltage, or the fuel if you like, coming through the ESC and the motor is exactly the same. However, obviously, the smaller pack, like a small fuel tank, is going to drain a lot faster than a larger fuel tank like this one. So I hope that explains the capacity issue on it. Do not be afraid of using a battery with a greater capacity. That is not what causes the issue with the ESC or the motor pretty much ever. And in fact, having too low a capacity can cause you problems, as I will demonstrate on the whiteboard in just a second. So don't worry too much about fitting a larger capacity battery than the stock one that came with your car, provided it's the same voltage and it can even have a higher C rating without causing a problem, as I'll touch upon in just a minute. The larger capacity, well, all that's going to do is give you more runtime, which has got to be more fun. But not only that, on some RC cars like ours, you actually need larger RC batteries in order not to cause the ESC any damage. That's right, using too small a battery on an Armour, like one like this, could cause you problems. Let's go to the whiteboard. Let me explain why. Now what I'm about to show you, think of this setup a bit like this. In this case, this is an Armour motor, one of the more higher powered ones. We've got a nice Armour ESC which is capable of powering this motor, provided, but then I'd also like you to think of the following. Think of this as being a Ferrari motor. We've got a Ferrari fuel pump in here. But with a smaller capacity battery like this, you've only got like the fuel tank from a Mini, okay? So this fuel tank is just the bottom half. It's tiny. Think of the ESC as being that Ferrari fuel pump. It might be a good fuel pump, but it's going to be going around like crazy, trying to draw too much fuel from here. Where it's only got like half a tank in there, it needs a full tank of fuel in order to get the fuel flow rate to the motor so that the motor maximizes its power. If it works too hard, the motor's trying to draw too much current, the fuel or the juice from the battery can't get in fast enough, and that ESC, think of it as like a fuel pump motor spinning too fast. It eventually spins and then kaboom, the thing explodes and gets too hot. So if you have too small a battery capacity, you can actually cause the ESC to overheat as the motor is trying to draw too much current or too much fuel, think of it as a fuel pump on a car, through the ESC, and eventually the thing will just give up the ghost. And that is why on some RC cars like Armours, they recommend you've got a 5000 milliamp capacity in order to provide enough flow of fuel, if you like, through to the ESC, so it doesn't have to work too hard to supply that motor with all the current it needs. So hopefully that explains battery capacity to you and why it doesn't necessarily kill the car if you're fitting a larger capacity battery to the car, but if you fit too small a capacity battery, you can cause damage to the ESC, which is something not everyone thinks about out there. And it may be the ESC gets too warm, but maybe they have too small a battery fitted to power the car. But in general, you fit a larger battery to your setup in terms of capacity. All you're doing, well, you're simply adding a larger fuel tank to the car. You're not changing anything else on the dynamics. So let's move on to talk about battery voltage, then C rating. Now with the voltage, it is a key choice and probably one of the things that causes the most damage to the motors indirectly and to ESCs directly. If your ESC is only 2S rated and you go and stick an 8S pack through it or even a 3S pack through it, the ESC, chances are it's going to burn out. Some ESCs you might be able to over voltage for a short while, but if it's rated at 2S, run 2S through it, not 3S or anything higher, as it will burn out. Motors, as I say, it's not the voltage that kills motors, it's heat. But if you use a high power ESC and put too much voltage into the motor, then the motor is going to get hot, overheat, and lose all of its power. In the main, you want to be focusing on getting the right battery voltage for your ESC. If this is a 2S battery and a 2S ESC, the motor might be rated at, say, 3S even. Not going to be a problem, provided we've got 2S battery on there. If we put a 3S battery into this ESC and it's only rated at 2S, the thing is going to get very warm indeed and fry itself out before the motor does. And likewise, if the ESC is 3S rated, battery's 3S, but the motor's only rated at 2S, it will still run, but again, it is going to get very, very warm, and when the magnets get too hot, it will lose all of its power. So quick recap on voltage. Basically, if the ESC says 2S, do not go putting 3S power through it, 4S power through it. If the ESC is 6S rated, stick to 6S. Don't go putting one of these big 8S packs through it because it's not going to end well. So voltage is the main killer of ESCs, as is having an ESC with too small a capacity battery on it. Like as an example, if I put 2 of these into my Armour Limitless powering them, not only would the current draw would be huge, the ESC, like that little fuel pump in there, would be spinning around like crazy. ESC would get too hot purely due to fitting 2 smaller capacity batteries on there. Now on to C rating, probably one of the most misunderstood things out on there. I will explain in loose terms what it is and why it matters and why you shouldn't be afraid of a high C rating battery at all. Well, before I explain in more detail what a C rating is, I'll talk about it in real world terms. You get batteries in anything from 15 to 25C to 50C to even 100C. Traxxas batteries as standard have just got a 25C rating on. I'll explain exact mechanics of why the higher C rating is better, why 50C is better than 25, or why 100C or even 150C is best of all. But in real world driving terms, if I run this 50C 4S pack on my car, it will have good punch, good acceleration throughout the rev range on there. And if the car's got a top speed, say 55 miles an hour, this battery might push it up to say 50 miles an hour. However, if I fit a 4S 100C capacity battery to the car, not only will the car have more punch off the line in terms of acceleration, it will also have more power throughout the rev range and quite probably hit the car's top speed of say 55 miles an hour. Now for the explanation as to why that is. Okay, think of it this way. This is my buggy running on a 4S 50C pack. With no load on, with the car turned off, we're getting 14.8 volts out of the battery. I turn the car on and under load, that voltage drops down with say this 50C pack to say 10 volts. But why is that an issue, Richie? Well, speed is directly related to the voltage going to the car. So if you could keep this much nearer to that 14.8, the car is going to go much faster. So how is that related to the C rating, Richie? Well, basically, the higher the C rating on the battery, the greater the chance the battery stands of being able to give out its maximum voltage when it's under full load. And this means if I use this 100C 4S POWERHOBBY battery, I turn my car on, the voltage will still drop, but it may only drop a little bit down here to say 13.5 volts on there. So the car is going to go faster as the voltage under full load is higher with the higher C rating. So basically, the higher the C rating of the battery, the closer the battery will remain to its given voltage, in this case 14.8 volts, when the battery is under full load from the RC car. And I'm going to use the fuel tank example again on the board to show you why the C rating is important and why it doesn't do harm to a lot of cars by increasing the C rating of the battery, but I'm also going to show you by having too low a C rating how it can cause damage to the ESC. Well, I'm going to use the car analogy again. Think of this as being a Ferrari motor, the ESC as being a Ferrari fuel pump. We've got a decent sized tank which should have enough capacity for the Ferrari, but the engineers made a mistake. Think of a low C rated battery as an engineer fitting a fuel line from Mini on here. We fire up our Ferrari engine. It draws a huge amount of current from the ESC. The ESC tries to draw lots of power from the battery, but we've only got this tiny little line from here. And think of it, this has been the fuel pump once again. The ESC is trying to work too hard, like a fuel pump. It's spinning like crazy. Once again, we get heat issues on there. That is why they recommend higher C rating batteries for armors, because if you fit a higher C rated battery on here, we fit in a Ferrari size fuel pipe on here, which means the ESC isn't going to be working too hard, and accordingly it's not going to get too warm. Another way to think of it is the C rating being like octane rating on your fuel. This could be an engine from a Mini. You could have a Mini fuel pump on here. You can go and put 97 octane in here and the fuel pump will still run fine. Likewise, the C rating on that battery won't damage the ESC or the motor. It purely, on that voltage curve I showed you, it purely stops the voltage dropping down too much like that. It keeps it more on a level up here, close to the original voltage of the battery. The point I'm trying to get across is you've got a lot to gain from having a battery with a high C rating, as it's going to stop that voltage of the battery dropping down under load. And as voltage is directly related to speed, a higher C rated battery, which is going to keep its higher voltage for longer, not experience such a drop, is going to mean your RC car runs faster. So to my mind, buy the highest C rated batteries you can. As I've just explained on the whiteboard, it's not going to cause the ESC or the motor any issues. In fact, having a battery with too small a C rating, and as I showed with the little fuel pump running too fast, trying to draw too much power through from the battery, having a too low a C rating can actually harm the ESCs. In fact, it says so specifically in the manual with Success Armors. So hopefully this video is hitting the right mark on how to choose the right RC car battery. Bigger capacity batteries will give you increased runtime, but they're also needed for certain cars in order not to overheat the ESC. Likewise, bigger C rating in general is better, as it enables the battery to work more in line with the voltage it was designed for, which at the end of the day is going to make your car go as fast as possible. But the downside is bigger capacity batteries and bigger and higher C rated batteries cost more money. So it swings and roundabouts, but if you use a cheap one that's got too low a capacity, too low a C rating, you can cost yourself money if your ESC does like I described, it's working too hard and it overheats and blows up. Batteries relatively cheap, a lot of ESCs aren't. So to my mind, you're better to get the right battery in the first place. So I would say, don't get hung up on worrying about fitting a bigger capacity battery or a higher C rated battery to your car. That is not what kills ESCs and motors in general. In fact, as I've shown, if you fit too small a capacity or too low a C rated battery, that is one of the ways to go about destroying an ESC, as is over voltage. If the ESC is rated at 2S, put it only on 2S, don't put it on 3S, or you're going to risk frying it. And as I say, motors in general, they don't die with voltage, they die with excess heat. Anyway, I hope you found today's video on how to choose the right RC car battery useful. If you did, then share with friends, and if you love it, then don't forget to subscribe. Well, thumbs up if you like this video, guys. Post any comments you might have in the comment section below the video, and hit the circle below to subscribe. And if you do hit the circle, don't forget to hit the bell.